because I see some young men here, some younger people who need to know these things. You know, for Ogallala, and we had an agreement. And somewhere along the line, there became disagreement. So my purpose here is mainly to listen, because I have a job to do. And that is to take those items and put them to rest. That's what the elders told me. So for Cheyenne River's position, that's where we're at. But we've been inviting people, because when you look at a family tree, when you start from yourself and you go back, the branches of that tree end to a certain point to where there's no more documentation. Years ago, I started doing a family tree to the present. And as a great grandfather, the family tree is bigger. So now there are more people that need to discuss this. You go back 70 years ago, there was just a few people who were involved in this and were moving forward with everything. You know, when that Crazy Horse malt liquor case came up, the state's attorney called me and they said, we need the Hump side of the family to come into this meetings, because Tashuko Itzko's mother was Rattling Blanket Woman, who was the sister of Chief Hump. Tashatunka Witka, he's Ogallala, plus he's Mini Koju, Koju. But we didn't argue over anything. We turned around, we stopped the using of that name for alcohol. So on the money side of it, I can say that Cheyenne River has not generated any type of income from any of these. You come in here, the things that you see on here were voluntarily given to the museum. The Cultural Center is the official designated museum of the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe. We went to Peabody Museum. The historian went to Peabody Museum and brought that powder horn, those arrows, and they brought them back and they said, what do we do with them? I said, take them to the Cultural Center so people can see that history. I heard a recommendation of making copies, replicas. You need to agree on that.
That's a good question.
There's an issue going on right now over intellectual property rights over the publishing and selling of Lakota language. That's not how we lived. If you go back and you lived in a Tipestala, you didn't have your portion of that lodge with a whole bunch of belongings. I think there's a program on TV called Hoarding. Lakotas were not hoarders. Because along with these artifacts, there's another issue with 132 bison skulls that washed up when the flood happened down here in Fort Pierre, and they were pumping all that water out. That rush of water created a sandbar. And a fisherman went by there and he seen some bones. And he went out there and here there was 132 bison skulls dated from 500 to 10,000 years old. The Corps of Engineers turned around and gave it to the state of South Dakota. I went after the state of South Dakota because I wanted them back here. They gave them to the School of Mines. So I went after them at School of Mines. They gave them to the Intertribal Bison Corporation. And then the Intertribal Bison Corporation gave them to Standing Rock. That's where I cut my my search off, because it ended up with the people. Same thing here. The collection you're talking about, that was displayed down at the Wounded Knee Commemoration Memorial, I did not attend. For years, people asked me to be part of the Wounded Knee ride, and I declined. I said, those people traveled in a simple way. They wore buckskin and they walked, some on horseback, in the dead of winter. And these guys were going down there in pickups and vans and cars, wearing Gore-Tex and Thinsulate and all this modern day winter clothing. I said, if I go down there, I'm gonna go how they were dressed. But I never went down. But I heard back from there that they were put on display. Very few people have been in the archives to look at those shirts. Like I said, I haven't seen them. They even asked that we bring them up here during the motorcycle ride, when the Wounded Knee motorcycle ride comes through, that we put them in here and people can come look at them. And they asked, that's in the summertime. Then they asked me if I could bring them up here in the wintertime and put them out here on display as the riders go to Wounded Knee. And I declined. When you're talking about preservation and you're taking things out of climate-controlled rooms and dehumidifiers and you're bringing them out into this environment and you're taking them back and forth, they deteriorate. The more handling of them, they deteriorate. That's not preservation. They did some core sampling in New York. Core sampling is where they drill into the ground and they pull out circles of dirt. They open up and they look at it, and they brought out a piece of a newspaper dated 1920, and you could still read it. Along with that core sample was a apple. And you could smell it, and it still smelled like an apple. So what I've learned, putting things on the shelf isn't preservation. Leaving things in the ground, they stay preserved. They stay in the condition they are. I've also had people come to me and say, we need to bring our relatives back to Cheyenne River from the gravesite. And that's a whole different issue that I don't agree with. But it's going to be everybody in this room that came here that has interest in this. Yeah, there's people on the radio and people on YouTube and Facebook and all this who want to know about this so they can tell their side of it. They should be here. So I appreciate all of you who are here today. Because I think with this we can move forward and we can put closure to this. Like I said, I heard these things from great-grandparents and my grandparents and my parents. Now I'm a great-grandparent and I'm still hearing this. So my goal is to get to a closure. Barnes Museum would not give these things up for years because they said the tribes did not get along. So for 2 years I was working with them to bring them back over here. Then all of a sudden I seen in a newspaper that there were already someone going after them. So under the NAGPRA process, I could have put a claim in there and stopped it, but again, it would say the tribes aren't getting along. So I stepped back and I let it happen. Now here we are. I don't agree with politics being involved with tradition. One time I stood in front of tribal council and I says, over here at Greengrass, there's a chanupa. I said, do you council have any say over that chanupa? And they said, no. When you wake up in the morning Do you need permission to be Lakota? No. Food for thought, along with your bread and your food there. Something to think about. I don't like to put a burden on the next generation or the next 7 generations to continue these hard discussions. You heard the elder lady say, this person passed away and they had a giveaway. And when all the stuff was given away, the rest of the stuff was burnt. That's a practice. That's a tradition. Not all Tioshbas do that. But there's still families today that do that. When my grandmother passed away, a lot of the other grandmas came and they says, I like that skillet that she had. I like that rolling pin that she had. Says, here, have it. Because they can use it. So now, like I said, not all people agree. And if we're going to sit here and wait for people on the outside that aren't here to come to a conclusion, we're not going to get to a conclusion. So from my office, you can know that I am ready to take those things and bury them. And just to let you know, on another collection, there was an FBI case. You can look it up on your little computer there in your pocket. The guy's name was Don Miller. He was 90 years old when the FBI raided his house in 2014. And they took over 6,000 artifacts out of his house in Indiana. So if you Google Don Miller collection, you'll see what that guy had. He had stuff from China, he had stuff from Egypt, he had stuff from all over the world. But he was also up and down Minichoshe, the Missouri River. All those items I seen by what the FBI was sending me through email, not in person. But 2 years ago, all those items that this individual took from the state of South Dakota is in our archives, and I have not seen them. There's still evidence tape on them. So think of this down the line. Once we get done with this, I want to meet with the same group that comes to a conclusion, not just talk and talk and talk and talk. That we need to sit down and talk about those items. There's nothing in there that I know of that come from Wounded Knee or from the Bigfoot massacre. So there's all different ways of doing things. One person went to an elder and says, what do I do with this chanupa my grandma had? The elder said, are you going to use it? He said, no, I don't do that. And he said, well, take the stone and crush it and bury it with the wood. The wood will rot and disappear. But if you go put it somewhere, somebody's going to take it and probably smoke marijuana out of it. Or sell it, or put it in a pawn shop, or make money on it. Whereas another person would say something different. So we have this here today. We have all these different views and ideas of what to do to go forward. So again, food for thought. I'm not going to tell anybody in here what they need to do. You need to decide what you want to do and help us. I want to say thank you to those who heard me. I know we're getting close in time here to closure, so I want to offer this up for Councilman Joe brings plenty here. So, Wopilai Chichicha.
Omnichiye. Steve. Ota Omnichiye. Ma minikoju na Oglala, Lakota. A little closer? Okay. I'm Ivan Looking Horse. Wow, that's good. I want the families that I come from is the Oglala and the Minikoju families. Federally, I'm enrolled here, Cheyenne River, and our Minikoju families always really supported Crazy Horse, and they followed him, and he was the Minikoju too, but there's a lot of families here that can find their origins and how they're related. First of all, I want to welcome our Hunkpapa relatives and our Oglala relatives coming together. There's a lot of information being shared, a lot of perspectives being shared, and respectfully we sit and we listen. My grandmother was a Jenny Cheyenne woman, and there was some confusion because there was actually two. My grandmother that was married to Charlie Roach, she was a Jenny Cheyenne woman, but she was the younger one. They named them both the same name. And the older, my grandmother's mother stayed there down in Oglala, and she married a White Eyes. So I'm related to like Roger and all of them too, to our grandmother's side. And my grandmother, she was shot in the leg before they even left here because of the militia that was going up and down the river on a Wakwawash Day. And so when they went down to Wounded Knee, seeking counsel and refuge because of what was happening, because of what happened to Sitting Bull, they were put in a place there on the Wounded Knee Creek, and they were attacked. On my mother's father's side of the family, I got relatives on the Hunkpapa side because of Makestrom. Makestrom was Chief Makestrom was married to Goodfeather, Sitting Bull's sister, older sister. So White Bull, One Bull, and those are all our relations. So that's how closely related, and that's how we watched over each other, making relations. And that's why our Hunkpapa relatives came here, to come to the Minikoju. Everybody says, why did they leave in the middle of the night? Nobody knows. Well, we knew what they were doing is they were hunting and already killing Lakota. There's a big article spread about it. Some guy that lived big rancher south of the river here, talked about all of his grandfather's exploits and the killing of Indians and taking their items and, keeping collections and selling them and making good money. Lived a long, good life over into his 90s. So, we have a long, sad history. But one thing is, my grandmother, she came back up to Cheyenne River, and there was a story of a lot of the relatives there, fleeing, being hunted. And there's a place down by the Wakwawash there that there was where they gathered, and some elders talked about it. And I looked and looked and prayed and looked and found it. And I found the foundation. I found where it was tore down and then where another cabin was built. So the place that they talk about, my grandmother and the other individuals coming to, gathering and tending to their wounds and eating, and before they went back into the community, they swore not to talk about it because they were still being hunted. So thinking about all of this with the items, what my grandmother went through, the disconnect because of the fear that our people were facing with the government. Not just the government, but the militia. If you ever read that book, To Have This Land, it gives a big historical information on what was happening during that time. Our relatives didn't know there was a battle for statehood in South Dakota. So the Republicans and Democrats were fighting over this state, because once it became state, and whoever got this state was become majority, and they're going to have the power vote. So our people were being used as an example and being attacked. So, you know, all of these towns like Rapid City and stuff were pleading that there's a great Sioux uprising and that they needed military, they needed weapons, and they were getting the weapons. So a lot of this militia that was formed up, you read about over at Buffalo Gap, a lot of our relatives were going through there and they were getting shot and they were getting killed. There's more mass graves here. There's more mass graves. Come across a couple of them, and I imagine there's going to be more. They say, don't mess with them, smallpox. But I imagine if you open up those graves, you're going to probably find violent means of death for individuals. Violent means, maybe bullets in the head, because they were eradicating our people and terminating them. I come in here, I always remember my grandma, Margaret makes them. Look up at these murals. These murals I've been looking at since I was a little kid. There's 2 new murals that are up here, or 3, no, 2. The other ones that were always up here for a long time, Sidney Keith. It was, I always looked at them, I always wondered, you know, what they were. Then when I come here, I always remember my relatives, being a little boy, my older brother Mo. When my dad worked for the WIC program over at the nutrition center over here, I used to go over there and sit with him, and I was in there one time. You know, they always bring the food out. I was just a little guy sitting there with all these elders, and I was sitting there playing around with the salt, and I accidentally knocked it over. And somebody behind me, when you're a little kid, everybody was a little giant, you know, really big. You're always looking up at everybody. And so what happened was somebody went and took it and stood it back up on its, the salt, and she said, you know, this salt, she said, reminds me of my mother. She said that, she said, did you know those are our people that were killed there at the Wounded Knee? So she positioned her chair and looked at me, and she was this elder woman, and her hair, like, you know, had a really like back in the 50s type hairdo, and she was talking to me, telling me this story. And she said, when my mother was a little girl, she said she was at the Wounded Knee. And she said that she didn't know much that was going on, but she said she heard gunfire and like bombs going off and people crying and screaming, running. And she said her mother was running with her, holding her. And she said that she lifted her up into the air, and she said an arm wrapped around her. And she said it was these young warriors, she called them warriors. They were like 13, 14, 15-year-old boys that were getting on horseback, and they're getting as many kids as they could. And she said they were riding them out of the ravine. And she said they went over the ravine, and they'll drop them off, she said, and they'll ride back in. She said that when she was riding away, she looked back and she seen her mother running. She said something struck her. She said her chest opened up. She said she could taste salt because of the tears that were coming down her cheeks. I asked her, I said, what happened to those young men? She said, I don't know. The last time anybody ever saw them alive was they were riding back in. Because our Wakunyans is important. They're our future. Without them, we don't have a future. And our way of life and our past, it's everything to us. We have no direction without it. today I brought a couple of our young men. You can stand up, Lee Condon, Gage, Bald Eagle. They're part of our boxing program. And they're part of their Wounded Knee Survivor runners. They run during the Wounded Knee Survivors run to come back to Cheyenne River. And sometimes it's cold and it's hard, but here they are. They wanted to hear something today. So I brought them here to you, to hear you speak. They wanted to learn something today, so I brought them here. Go ahead, sit down, boys. Thank you.
Thank you, boys.
I think that, our younger generations, they're really counting on us, mainly you, as our elders. I think that when you do as much as you can within your community, then it stops being about me, it becomes us. When you do enough for everyone else, then it stops being about me. I think that, with what we're facing, I've sat and listened to a lot of different elders and people talk about what's taking place. Chairman LeBeau talked about the items being burnt, and when I first heard that, my heart hit the ground. I didn't know what to think. And some of the elders reached out, and so I was reaching out to Chairman LeBeau, and it's not that I want somebody to pay a price for it, or I want to ridicule somebody. It's just, I didn't know what to think. We created this run, and it's been for 12 years, so people could remember, because nobody talks about what took place after. I'm gonna tell you something, and I've kept it with me for a long time. Over at the Fort Meade, there were some of our relatives that they took they were prisoners. They took them there. Sitting outside of the hospital there, we took my uncle, Wayne Makestrom, there. And he was getting some services there at the hospital at Fort Meade. And my grandma said, "See that tree right there? It was a big old tree." She said, a young boy hung himself there. I was just a little boy. She said he hung himself there, and they brought him here after the Wounded Knee Massacre. That tree's not there no more, but I always remember that. She said that he couldn't live without his family no more. They took everything away from him, and what they saw, there was nothing to live for no more. Our young people are still going through that. We have, they made a movie about res dogs. We got real res dogs, legitimate. And the movie just is like a soft version of what our youth go through. It's a comical version. It doesn't hit true. Some of us got bullet wounds, some of us got knife wounds on us, and we didn't have to go to war off res for that. That's just res life. We got some legitimate res dogs here with us, and they're fighting for survival. We have a young relative over here. I'm always proud to see her, happy to see her, Chantal, Blue Arm. She grew up here. She smart, intelligent. She made a decision to leave because life here is tough. We don't have much here for our people. She went out and got educated, working a good job, and has a beautiful family. I'm really happy for her. That's how I want our children to see, the options that they have, because we don't got options. I know people are talking about reparations. I don't want nothing for myself. If I can take everything and trade it for whatever, then I'll give an option to our young people for a future, for them. This belongs to them. I can't take anything away from them that belongs to them. And I should be working as hard as I can to make sure that they have something. This Wounded Knee massacre did something, and we're still feeling the effects today. We're still reeling from the loss. Nobody cares about us but us. And we have to get real about it. We have to do what we have to do as relatives, Lakota people, to provide for our young ones. If there is something, let's honor our relatives. We want to form a foundation for this run. Because that story I told you about those young men, nobody remembers them. The stories that were shared, Violet Ketchum shared stories with us. Marlon Underbaggage came, shared stories with us. Charlie Newholy shared stories with us. There's a lot of elders that came together that shared stories with us. And those stories are still with us. But we don't want the world to forget, mainly our people, because one thing that was shared amongst everybody was the strength that our young people had and the resilience. So we could still be here today. My unchi, if she wasn't strong enough here, I wouldn't be here. She probably would have took her life. We need to create something beautiful for our people to remember. And I want a monument down there to recognize those warriors, those young warriors that were gathering people. They had made a movie called Suicide Squad. I said, that was a real Suicide Squad. They knew that they're running back into death, but our children mean so much to our nation. They're the center of our circle. We need to remember them, and we need to remember these young people that brought their, like on the Highhawk family, brought their unchi back. She was blind. Walked her all the way back so the agents from Carlisle Indian School could take them. Take them and march them off to Carlisle, and then they died subdued from their wounds that were received from the Wounded Knee massacre. A lot of things happen. The resiliency is still there. We got a chance, I asked them where they put those two young boys. They took them in a dry creek bed and they put them in the ground up on Bull Creek. We can do something to remember our relatives and everything they've done for us. Our resilience is still here. We still have our young people. We still have a language. We still have a culture. We still have a way of prayer and spirituality. We still have everything that our relatives left for us. I'm taking up some time speaking here, but I wanted to share with you, some of the knowledge that was passed on, some encounters that I've had, and I'm glad that we can come together and be discussing this. My perception is that we don't burn or bury the items. These items, there was an atrocity that was committed against our people, a major crime against humanity. So if we burn these items, no different than burning evidence that leads, to resolving these cold case murders, because there was nothing ever done to make it right. Nothing ever done. I don't want money for myself, like I said. If there's money to be brought into this, then we should make sure we build a monument to remember our relatives, to remember to tell the story of all of our people. We're family. We're Lakota. On the federal side of it, I got in all kinds of fights up on Cheyenne River because I was from Pine Ridge. Then when I was down in Pine Ridge, I got in all kinds of fights down there because I was Cheyenne River. So I moved to Interior. No, I was kidding. But it was just that Indian way of thinking, a reservation Indian way of thinking. You know, the Lakota families I did get to know are very beautiful families, and I admire them, just like all of you. When our elders leave us that are helping us, it'll be a sad day for us. So I want to say thank you. Allow me.
Bill, I got one question for you.
Daku.
In what I've been experiencing since December 29th, when the burning was halted, and I hear the stories, I know you guys have been running after you come back to Bikini Land. For 12 years, the word that comes is Narito. I've heard that. But when they continued going back to when the after Virgil Killstreak had the prayer release them, keep going back. Keep going back. They keep going back. What has these, you and your young people, have you experienced anything on the run back? Maybe if you could share it.
Yes, we have. When we first did the run, there was a lot of people along the edges that were coming with us. We went north, and there was like, you could feel like a heaviness, you know. And a lot of people that came, you know, a lot of people cried after it was done. They talked about their relatives. We had one thing is like even during the daytime, all the horses would always come with us. They'd follow us as far as the fence line would let them. The eagles, we even saw wolves. This last time, before, you can hear when we got done with prayer at the old bridge in Bridger. We gathered up, and we was praying, and we got done singing, and you can hear war whoops, and you can hear women Lili Lee in the distance around us, all around us, loud. It made us feel good, you know, that we're doing something that we're supposed to. So we start this with prayer. We pray through. We end it with prayer. People that are using, tell them not to be touching the staff, because this is about prayer. We're doing this as long as it takes for people to remember this when we build those monuments. There's a purpose for it. Because if we don't, nobody's going to talk about it. Forget about it. How- Oh. Oh. I think that a lot of us are born, if they're not, we're not far away from the generations. It didn't happen too long ago. My mother's grandmother was a survivor of Wounded Knee. It wasn't too far off, and the trauma it lives in us. But also there's another part of it too that's inside of us that we carry too, and that's that spiritual power. We're creating or mending a hoop, something that Blackout spoke of, the broken hoop. That circle was broken. We're mending that amongst our families. People that have relatives that made that journey back. A lot of them didn't live. Actually, Ben Alkigo shared that. He said back when he was a little boy, they went down there to the grave, and some relatives from the Wounded Knee area came over, and they said, "We haven't seen your people here for a long time." They always used to come down here, and he said, it was like since the 50s. They'd come down there and they'd spend 2 weeks, clean up the area, camp there, all the relatives there that had relatives that passed away, and then they would come back. He said that for 2 years they found bodies all the way back. What happened to them? So what we're doing is, if we pray with our relatives, they're going to go home and go back to the happy village, back where our relatives are, someplace that we hope that we can go to. That's one thing that we're doing for our relatives and for our future generations as well too. The ones that are still dealing with this trauma. We said something Wounded Knee did. It created a lot of generational trauma. There's a lot of high addictions and suicide, violence. Where did that come from? I think Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse have been fighting addiction ever since they were here. So now we have to carry on that fight. They gave me 10 minutes. They told me come.
Wow. We got to move on. Okay. We got an elder here. Who wants to speak? Address us. Bring a chair. Bring that chair.
Okay, this is good. Maybe they can put that in order. How do I do this? Just be close to them. Come forward a little bit.
Thank you for coming. We got talking about Tuesday. Walk to the Tuesday.
Melda, you're gonna
I
these
give
closer.
you all the good hearty handshake. Viva, I praise my Indian people and the full blood. Half San River, half standing on. My dad has been standing on. His name is Paul Brewer. And my mom is exotic over here. And I wanted to come and speak because we're on listener Blue Hat. And Grandpa came to me. Grandpa who? Grandpa who? Spotted Elk. He told me to tell you people that you guys are fighting over those artifacts of the Wounded Knee Massacre grave. He's told me to tell you, don't fight. Just get those artifacts and bury them by our grave so we could use them in the spirit world. He told me to go out and tell the people. He said, they just want to make money off of us. That's what he said. I want to come and look. He just likes that walk or that. ride that they do every year. He went in nursing machine. He was crying. That he spoke to people. He was crying. I cried with him because we can't rest in peace with this going on. We want to rest in peace now. We get those articles, bury them beside their grave so they can use them in the spirit world. I'm not making this up. Oh, Lord, I'm a Bible and I'm a son of a where I believe in all the 10 Commandments. I believe in the 7 Commandments that was brought with that pipe down at Greengrass. No worship on him there. I'm better after. So when I'm 93 years old, the Bible tells me all Christmas. Det är tyckte många med haftan like experiment 5 months ago. If I had his one another on him, don't talk like that. We do time, we're 96 and 93. We'll be going, just be happy one. So we sit and hold hands, that's all we can do. I miss that. I really miss him. But he said, Chair has now. He said, was on this ink, so once in a while, we'll take it back. He says, Miss, who should I have so Mom, are you okay, Al? I'm okay. I will be fine. So, anyway, that was my dream. And who comes to me too? Who came down about my 6, 7 years ago. He said, I think Lakota and I'm myself in a Congress airport, he said. The East Airport. That's what he said. That he told me to take his method along. I did. Nothing came over here and signed the rest. But she said, okay, I always have to do that. The trumpet. The Lakota could backwards think after everyone. After the that's after my sister said after my nose after that. So I talk about walk back there after doctor. After doctor. To doctor for else and that. Lakota else then vad sitter jag inte här. Något Lakota jag inte någon ser mig en kartan till. Lakota var en kvinna. Kvinna då och så förut man kommer. Why, Mom? I said, I talked in there before that. Oh, Mom. Serious. Well, anyway, I hope you guys listen to my dream. Because I was too much. I can't talk no more. Okay.
Can you tell it in English?
You want me to tell it in English?
Yeah.
That's what they want. Lakota, a lot of our people, Lakota, Grandpa came to me in my dream, and he said this. He said, Doctor, there I go again. He said, they're fighting over the artifacts. He said, I'm going to repeat in English. He said, I don't want them to be fighting. He said, they should just bury them by where I lay, and so we can use them in the spirit world. He said, don't, besides, you guys just want to make money off of us, like we are with that ride, he said. Oh, and another thing I almost forgot. If they want money, why don't they go to the United States Army and demand a compensation for every one of the survivors from that terrible massacre? So maybe he said that things will calm down so we can rest in peace, he said. That's what he said, Grandpa. And he talked to me in Alden or Lakota, and he told me to go out and spread the word. I wanted to go to Pioneers, but I can't with my back and my knees. I'm getting old. I'm not getting any younger, so I can't travel very far. I'd rather be on my bed right now. I wish I was. And so I wish you guys don't fight to fill over my, just bury them. I know it's going to be hard for you guys. You find this once on San River, don't fight, do what he wants us. He wants me to spread that, and go by it, that will be peace. We gotta be at peace as much as we can. And I have another message, which is you people should know. I woke up at 3 in the morning. TV put it at CNN. That was before my husband died in September. I was sitting there listening to, they're all talking about Trump. One this perked my ears. This man said, he said, cartel is bought by Trump and Putin. Putin is the leader of Russia. He said they got together and they're having a cartel hit every Indian reservation and poverty-stricken ghettos in the big cities because they get to spread the meth and other drugs. He said, well, get the youth so sick and so addicted, they won't be able to hold a gun when I come, this is Putin saying, when I come to the United States, I'm going to conquer the United States. I'm going to own the United States, and Trump will be the president of the United States forever. Now it's coming to light. I saw that as Bryce Underwood is meeting up at the where the Veterans Center. I told that, and now this morning, or was that yesterday morning, we heard that Northern Cheyenne cartels come in there real strong. So their police force are really trying to drive them out. It was on CNN. Put it on CNN. You get a lot more news there. I know you're going to hear about Trump all the time, but Trump, don't vote for him if any of you are believing that way. Put Biden in, because when Trump gets in, he's going to do away with the Indians. He wants the United States to be all white. He don't want no other race. who made that statement too. So beware of your vote, who you vote for. Even though you're a Republican, vote for Democrat. I don't want to go. Then he made a remark to the Indians, I'm going to send them back to India, he said. I really laughed. Who was India? We were here first. They're the ones that go back to their own people. So Putin and Trump are working hard to get the United States. And I was targeting our youth. I've got some grandchildren of going around talking to them, but they're so addicted, I can't get to them. 3 of them, my deceased son, 3 sons, who isn't here to correct them. So I'm praying to listen to me, but I think it's hopeless. Well, thank you. Hopefully, you're listening to the 93-year-old lady. But that's serious, because Grandpa just told me to go out and spread his word. Oh, the doctor wants to. Huh? What?
You ready?
So, Pilamiaye, Mom, can you hear me? Is this on? Is this on? Can you hear me now? Me too. Okay. I want this one here. Okay. Chante washte na pi chiusapi. We chachpe tokahe we. Is my Lakota name. My Washichu Chaje, Francine Garrow Hall. And I'm really grateful for all of you to come here and to talk about this very important matter before our people. And we grew up knowing that our great-grandmother, Jenny, in the lead. She also goes by Walks First. Her husband is listed as one of the dead at Wounded Knee, and his name was Shoots accurately, and her son was killed also. And she came back to Bridger, and she married William Garrow. And from that union, my father, Melvin Garrow, was born. And my Aunt Shirley is also from Gilbert Garrow, the same, my grandfather. And so there are a lot of us people here, but that story was kept quiet. We were not to share it outside the family because we're also in the bloodline of Crazy Horse, the warrior. Black Buffalo was the chief of the Teton, and he met Lewis and Clark when they were on their expedition up the Cheyenne River. And you read about it in the history books. They were stopped there by him, by Black Buffalo. He wouldn't allow them passage. And so they almost had a skirmish with his warriors. And they talked about it overnight. They had a camp meeting, and the next day he allowed them through because he gave them, Lewis and Clark gave Black Buffalo's people a bunch of their goods to use, in order as payment so they could travel up the river. I always say I wish they would have got them. And then maybe we would have a different story. But anyway, it is what it is. Black Buffalo had Longhorn, and that's who we descend from, directly descend from Longhorn. Black Buffalo also had Rattling Blanket Woman, who is a sister to Longhorn, or One Horn they call him, Hewaji. And Rattling Blanket Woman is the mother of Crazy Horse the Warrior. So that's my people, that's who I descend from. And again, this was kept quiet among our family because all of you have heard speakers before me talk about how the government at that time was killing our leadership. I think about our people that lived during that time from that transition where they were being hunted, because genocide was a policy of the United States government to rid us. It's always been about the land. Kill us off, take the land. And it's still happening today. There are people, Washichus are infiltrating our tribes, wanting to get range units, get our land. And we're letting it happen. We've got to wake up, or we're not going to be recognized as reservation tribal governments. The only reason that we are all separated is because the government feared us as a people. And so they broke us up into reservations. They created the reservation system. I remember my grandmother telling stories that they sent out word by the Indian agents, said everybody who you had to be, wherever you wanted to be, to reside or become on those rolls, those agency roles, you had to be at that agency. And they gave them a deadline date. Our people, are mobile. We've always have been. And we've got relatives all over. And so that's why on that date, they put us on, they came up with these roles. And now, to be an Indian, enrolled in one of these tribes, we've got to prove that we descend from somebody on that roll. And so that was the whole idea, to break us up, because we were a powerful Ochedi Shakomi confederacy. And we had the audacity to fight the military and win. And so they feared us. And so that's why we had the Wounded Knee Massacre, again, to make an example, because they feared our people. When you look at these murals, you see this mural up here, which shows contact. I've read a number of stories. I taught Indian history to our children in high school, in junior high. And I always made sure when I taught U.S. history that I also taught what was going on with our people at that time. And when you look at that mural and you see the contact, I remember a story from Tecumseh. We all, Tecumseh is really how you say his name. And we've learned about him and how he was trying to get a Confederate going. He really knew what was happening. He knew what the United States leadership and their military, using their military, he knew what their goal was. So he went to, Tecumseh went down to the other tribes, and he was trying to unite them into a confederacy. And his brother, he had a brother who was a medicine man. His name was Tenskwatawa. And he foretold that there were people coming from across the ocean. And he said, these people are children of the devil. You know, and when you look at the history that our people, and it's not only the Ocheri Shakoi, you start from the east and you go all the way west. It was just like dominoes. They used the same tactics. And the goal was to wipe us from the face of this earth. You know, I stand before you as a survivor, and all of you stand as a testament that failed. Their goal to exterminate our people failed. And so, you know, we have to remember our history. We've got to know our history. There was a historian by the name of George Santayana who said, those who do not remember the past are condemned to relive it. We need to know it so that we don't make the same mistakes. We're going to be going next Saturday, a week from today, to a meeting in Rapid City about the Black Hills. And it's really important that we speak as one mind, one voice, because we've got the support in Congress to introduce a piece of legislation that we can ask for ask the government to give back the federal land in the Black Hills to the Ocheri Shakoi. So we've got to speak with one mind, one voice. And everybody is invited to that meeting. It's going to be held at the Holiday Inn downtown, the one right next to the Civic Center. So if you can make it, I encourage you to come and learn about this. And I'm thankful that the leadership at the Indian Collective are organizing this meeting and asking for everybody's input. So as we leave today, I'm reminded of the meeting up at Standing Rock when Arvo Looking Horse spoke, and he said the decision about what to do with the artifacts is going to be made in ceremony. And I believe that. I believe that. You just heard Spotted Elk come to my mother and talk to her and to share this. And I'm thankful, I'm grateful that you all listened to her. She is an elder. Was stricken with cancer and had a number of cancer surgeries and cancer treatments, and she's still with us. And so thank you. I know sometimes it's hard for her to talk because they took part of her left jaw, and it's hard for her to enunciate, the words. But she keeps asking, or one of the things she told me that she asked Spotted Elk when he came to her, and Grandpa Fool's Crow when he came to her. She said, "Why me? There's you other leaders that you could come to, and why me? I can't really talk. I'm nobody." And we don't know why, but why they do things, it's mysterious in the spirit world, why they chose her. And she's taken that really seriously, getting the message out. I sit on the tribal council here on Cheyenne River, and I've tried to get that message out to our people. So anyway, thank you for listening to me. Lila Wopi Latunka, Homitaku Ye Oyasi.
Where's Justin? Dokia. Uh-huh. Justin's not here. Mike. Mike, are you gonna, oh. Is Justin head up? He was sitting right there, he's gone.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Hecrow, and I'm a direct descendant from Chief Bigfoot. And I'm related to them, the Garros. And I came a little bit late, but from listening to what people are talking about, there's a lot of misinformation that's going around here from a lot of the meetings and a lot of the Facebook stuff that's out there. And one of the things I wanted to correct first is that you don't need the artifacts for evidence. There's overwhelming evidence already since 1890. There's signed affidavits from all the survivors from the interviews that started in 1891 to 1921. And they have their thumbprints on those. And I got all the interviews. So, and also, at the time of 1890, there was also people that were claiming to be survivors of Wounded Knee because they heard about the money. In the treaty, they put away $200,000 for compensation for what they call friendly Indians and hostile Indians. And if you're a friendly Indian and a hostile Indian came to your place and raided it, then you would get compensated for that fund. So at that time, that's probably worth probably a couple $1 million. But there were 722 affidavits that were put in 1891 from the ghost dance problems. And out of 722, 600 of those were put in from Pine Ridge. And 98,000, just over 98,000 was compensated, paid to people in 1892. 28 of those were from Cherry Creek. So if you want to sue the government, you might have to think twice about that, because some of you have already got compensated. So I do a lot of research in our history. I go back as far as I could. My family tree goes back to 1625. That's how far I go back. And I can name all my grandfathers and grandmothers' names back to 1625. And there's a lot of misinformation about our families too. And that's why we don't go public with our information. At our meeting last week, it was supposed to be just our Teoshpai, but somehow it got out in the media and stuff. And there were some people that tried to put us on Zoom, and they even tried to put us on live on the radio.